It's 7:03 p.m. on Thursday, the 10th of May, 2012 in Los Angeles. It's 10:03 p.m. in Somerville, Massachusetts, where I, Mark Strassman, reporter with Ethiopia News, am about to speak to James O'Keefe, who's the captain of the Massachusetts Pirate Party. Welcome, and welcome to Ethiopia News.
Thank you for having me on, Mark.
What is your position as captain of the Massachusetts Pirate Party entail?
Basically, chief bottle washer, largely. I'm the primary organizer. When we formed the Pirate Party back in 2010, there were several other people who helped me who are still involved. And so we've since gone on. We're registered with the Office of Campaign and Political Finance for fundraising purposes. People can register as a pirate voter when they go and fill in their voter registration form. Instead of writing in Libertarian or choosing Democrat, Republican, or Green Rainbow, they can instead go and write in pirate. We have a first officer, Lauren, and our quartermaster, Chris, as well as other people who are active organizers in their communities and in Massachusetts.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your career as a member of the Green Rainbow Party and why you switched to be a pirate.
So I joined the Greens back in 1996 during Nader's, not quite Nader's first campaign, I suppose, more his first semi-serious campaign, and was active in the Greens from 1998 on in their basically board of directors and as co-chair of the party, and was active in leadership in the party during his 2008 campaign. In 2001, I decided to step down and run for Treasurer of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In that race, I received 160,000 votes, or about 8% of the vote, in a three-way race between a Democrat, a Republican, and myself. And then in 2006, I ran again with several other Green candidates and received 16% of the vote, or about 320,000 votes. I've been active in the 2004 presidential campaign, local campaigns for Greens, as well as the 2008 Cynthia McKinney presidential campaign. But when I found out about the Pirate Party back in 2010, especially 2011, I was very excited about the prospect that it offered. We've seen since 9/11 since 9/11, we've seen our civil liberties taken away from us. I work in the technology sector. I've done that for about 20 years, testing computer software. I've been on the internet for over 20 years. And so I've seen what's been an environment that is open to all, where people can share, where people can remix things, gradually fenced in and privatized increasingly. And so as a Green, I took some of those values of openness and both marshaling of the natural spaces and have applied that to being able to open up our culture and free the creativity that are endemic and are part of the human condition.
How many active Massachusetts pirates are there?
There are perhaps, I would say, 10 or 15 active members. We have more people who have signed on as voters or who are on our mailing list.
Do you know how many people have signed up with the Commonwealth officially?
Last time I checked, it was about 25 or so.
Okay. What's the philosophy and reason for being of the party now?
Sure. Well, in Massachusetts, we see ourselves as the party of open. We want open government. We want open culture, and we want open innovation, as well as putting people first. That means putting people before corporations, putting personal privacy before the needs of government to surveil our lives. The original Pirate Party started in Sweden. Their focus were very similar. It was on maintaining personal privacy. It was on copyright reform to allow people to share the culture we are all using and creating, to be able to remix things. And then eliminating patents in order to encourage innovation. And they've come up with some innovative proposals, say in the areas of pharmaceuticals, that we could eliminate patents while still expanding the amount of innovation that's going on in the pharmaceutical sector. So those are the three, main platforms. Of course, questioning corporate power was implicitly part of that. We've seen with the RIAA and the MPAA how they've seemed to fight from the VCR to cable, the record player. They've pretty much tried to fight all the innovations that have come along, and their attempts to pass bills like SOPA are just more of the same. They don't want to innovate. They just want to go and maintain their own cushy position rather than open things up, rather than allow artists themselves to be able to connect with fans and give fans a reason to support them. Increasingly, we see the entertainment companies basically paying out pennies to the artists who actually create the work, and then giving millions and millions of dollars to the top 200 who are successful. But your garage band isn't going to get a good deal from the Sonys of the world.
Okay, that's your philosophy. What are your current electoral goals?
Well, our current electoral goal, we've been looking for candidates, so we found a capable candidate in J.P. Hollenbeck, who you've had on your show.
Right.
So we're focusing on his campaign and making sure that's a successful campaign. And then we're looking at local elections next year, cities and towns. So we're looking for candidates and trying to train people to run, and then focusing on having more candidates in 2014 as well for state elections and potentially federal elections.
Now, small European parties can often get into their parliaments if they win 5% or more of the vote. But American parties need to get a majority vote in a single-member district in order to get into a legislature. How do you intend to deal with this obstacle when starting an alternative party like the Pirates?
Well, our focus is on local offices that includes positions such as state representative or state senate, which we feel are more winnable than a federal office, however much those are higher profile. We're trying to work locally, but also we realize we need to change the electoral system such to move more towards proportional representation, so that if a candidate if a party, say, gets 10% of the vote, they get 10% of the legislature, moving towards instant runoff voting in the case of single offices such as governor or secretary of state. We need to open things up. I view it as there are three things potentially holding back any third party. One is money, which everyone focuses on. One is ballot access, and one is simply the electoral system. We've seen in Europe where they have more parties there. They aren't just left with Coke or Pepsi as we are here in the United States. And so we see them as, we've seen how they've been successful and how the electoral system there has helped them, and we want to go and through ballot initiatives, through making connections with other groups, be able to change the system, perhaps starting at cities or towns, and then working up towards the Massachusetts legislature and seeing where that goes.
Tell us, and as concisely as you can, what exactly you'd like to see as the intellectual property law for the regulation of what now is included under copyrights and patents.
Sure. Well, we prefer the term intellectual privilege because that sets out what it is. When Congress put it in, it was to be a limited monopoly for up to 28 years, and that's been extended. Now it's the life of the author plus 70 years. And so we'd certainly like to see in copyright, our proposal is to allow a 5-year copyright for digital representations and a 14-year for physical representations. When the Constitution was first approved, in the days, shall we say, of the early republic, it was 14-year. You'd have to, you basically could go to the government and say, I want a copyright on this document for 14 years, and you could renew it after the end of the 14 years for another 14 years. So we think 14 years is reasonable for physical objects, and then 5 years for digital objects, looking at other ways of making sure people still have the ability to remix and to share culture. So we certainly don't want people to go after file sharers, as well as there needs to be greater innovation. So if we look at what happened with early rap, where people could go and they could take snippets of songs and be able to create entirely new compositions based on those songs, that's not possible now. People have gone and looked at albums from, say, for the Beastie Boys or Public Enemy, and they've looked at those songs and said, well, if we paid for those snippets, we'd make zero money. Not only would we make zero money, but we'd end up paying other copyright holders for this. That's hindering innovation, and now within the music industry, you don't see those types of songs anymore because it's prohibitively expensive. We feel that there needs to be an ability, certainly for artists to be compensated within the term of the copyright, but also for people to be able to remix and share content, share our culture as they see fit. In terms of patents, we believe patents should be eliminated simply because they stifle innovation. They aren't actually helping innovation. I work in the software industry, and indeed we've seen, since the Supreme Court allowed patents on software, where people have gone and applied patents, you may have an idea or a process within software that could be covered by so many different patents. If you run afoul of the wrong person, you're not going to be able to make your business successful simply because someone could come to you and demand money for some patent that they never did anything with. The point of innovation is innovators need to go out there, they need to build businesses, and they shouldn't have someone who came up with an idea perhaps and wrote down what that idea was and that process was, but didn't actually do anything with it. If they weren't successful, sorry, but other people should get a chance to innovate and try new things.
Now, you're down the road from Harvard and MIT that are veritable factories of patents, and I think there are people there who would argue that the patent system is exactly what does allow for innovation, because it motivates people to come up with new things that are covered by patents and then are commercialized. Have you been getting reactions from local patent generators, and what's your reaction to what they've been saying, if anything?
Well, considering we've seen within Apple and Samsung, Facebook, and other Google, where they've gone and they've spent billions of dollars to acquire patents, the Kodak patents, Polaroid patents. Polaroid, of course, was a Massachusetts company. Those patents have been acquired. Different companies have become patent trolls. They just gather up patents and then they sue anyone who uses something that could be considered infringing on their patent. That's billions of dollars that's wasted money. It's not going to new innovation. It's going to pay someone else who was unsuccessful in the marketplace. Why should we be doing that? If someone isn't actually doing something with their patent, if they aren't actually innovating, if they aren't creating new businesses, if they aren't creating jobs, why should they get paid for that?
Will personal digital privacy against the monitoring activities of government and corporations be a winning issue for the pirates?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen with the CISPA bill, which has the potential of eliminating all privacy in the internet. Basically, that bill would allow the government to work hand in hand with internet service providers, with telecoms, and be able to suck up all of the data that's going out over the internet, put it into a database, and then ostensibly for security reasons or to fight people who might go and break into computers, that data could be sucked up and then put into a database, and they could search through it. We've already heard with the expansion of the NSA's facility in Utah that they're going to be pulling up terabytes, petabytes of data. What are they going to do with it? What are the safeguards on that data such that people aren't going to be snooping on us without a warrant? Privacy is a vital issue. Our privacy in our private lives, the fact that I can mail a letter to someone and know the government isn't going to intercept it, open it up, look at it, and then stick it back in an envelope and mail it off without at least having a warrant to be able to do that, is vital to our democracy. We expect things in our physical life that increasingly the government is trying to take away from us in our virtual life. And that is an issue that we feel is a winning issue for us.
What's government transparency, and why is it that important to the pirates?
Sure. So government transparency includes things such as how much money the TSA is spending on acquiring scanners that they then stick away, as was recently reported, in warehouses and then never use. But transparency is, where does the government spend our money? Transparency is, who exactly got the $16 trillion that the Federal Reserve lent out to the banks that nearly went belly up in 2008. Transparency is our ability to know what our government is doing on our behalf and to us. Without that knowledge, there's no way we can even claim to live in a democracy or even in a republic if we cannot hold the members of our government, if we cannot hold potentially our elected members of Congress accountable for what they've done and what they've allowed to do.
Do the pirates have positions on legacy issues like the economy, energy policy, immigration, education, and so on?
Sure. Our focus is, as I said, on the issues I've already mentioned, but where those apply to education, for example, creating systems of open source books that people can contribute to, the way we've seen with the open software, with open software, allowing coursework to be shared rather than locked up in a small number of textbook manufacturers. That would be one area where we'd focus on. Of course, the patents are going to apply to pharmaceutical products, and being able to come up with alternative ways of developing pharmaceuticals and paying for that, that will then encourage innovation, and not, as we've seen with various drugs that have come out, they've gone through, and then we've found out, well, really, they're not that much better than other drugs that are on the market, but they're a whole heck of a lot more expensive because they're under patents, and because someone has a lockdown on that drug for the next potentially 21 years. So there are those issues where they overlap with our established issues, but on other broader issues, we have not yet taken a position, and we're in the middle of formulating those and coming up with what those would be, focusing on city and local issues for next year, as well as helping, of course, JP hone his platform. I mean, certainly there are issues of privacy and whether and what happens between you and your doctor is not something the government should care about. So that's a personal privacy issue.
What's distinctive, if anything, about the way the Pirate Party makes its internal decisions? And tell us what liquid feedback is and whether the Massachusetts Pirate Party is going to be using it.
Well, Liquid Feedback was started in by the German pirates. Basically, it's a system whereby individuals can vote, can propose issues, and then can vote on those issues. They can delegate their vote on particular issues to other individuals who can then delegate them yet to other people, but at any time they can take their vote back and vote as they see fit. So it's a way of allowing the technology to help us make decisions better and allow more people to make decisions. It's something it's a software package we're incredibly excited about, and we want to make sure we implement here in Massachusetts for our own decision making, as well as once we've successfully demonstrated it, see if we can have it used at least if only in some advisory capacity to boards of aldermen or city council or things like that, and see how successfully it can be used, and then try and apply it to higher offices.
Do you expect that the pirates, given their penchant for technology, would end up getting financial support from Silicon Valley?
I think where individuals are concerned about privacy, where they're concerned about copyright, we would welcome contributions and aid from any individual. We, of course, don't take money from corporations, and we're limited by what we can raise per person. But if there's an individual who's in the tech sector, whatever their position, and they wanted to give us a contribution or volunteer their time or their expertise, we'd certainly love that.
Briefly, what's your strategy for building the Massachusetts Pirate Party?
Our strategy is to go to events as well as have our own events. We had a pirate conference, which I believe certainly the first one in Massachusetts, and New England may very well have been the first one in the U.S. that had over 40 people attending. We've put some of the videos of the conference talks up on our website, up on our YouTube account, so that people can watch those. We're focusing on registering more people to be pirates, and ultimately getting more people to run, and hopefully more people to win.
What would you say is the Massachusetts Pirate Party's distinctive spirit?
We have a spirit of openness, certainly of playfulness. The fact that I am a captain and not a chair of the Massachusetts Pirate Party is certainly a bit tongue-in-cheek, but we recognize that there just needs to be a bit more fun in politics. We see with the two major parties, they're at each other's throats, while at the same time, amazingly enough, when the interests are those of Wall Street, for example, they're very much in lockstep. So on abortion, they may disagree, or on gay rights, but when Wall Street beckons, they do the bidding of Wall Street and the corporations. So we recognize that within that environment, we need to be a bit playful, while also being very serious about the issues that we care about and fighting for those issues. Okay,
tell people who are watching, who are interested in getting more information about the party, or who want to lend a hand, how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. We're at www.masspirates.org. You can also find us at facebook.com/masspirates. We're also on Twitter at masspirates. You can reach us at info@masspirates.org. Those are perhaps the best ways of reaching us. And we certainly welcome anyone who's interested in the Pirate Party in Massachusetts or in New England. We've reached out to some folks in Maine and New Hampshire who are interested in starting pirate parties there. So if you're from those states, or from Connecticut or Vermont or Rhode Island, we're certainly willing to help you out in any way we can to give you the knowledge that we have about starting up a party and what administrative issues there might be. But certainly people in Massachusetts, we're going to be at the Pride March, the Boston Pride March on June 9th, and we'd love people who want to march with us for that. We'll also be around in July at various events, and certainly at the Freedom Rally in September. Folks who want to help out JP's campaign up in Lowell, who are in the Lowell area or are willing to drive up, can contact us and we'll put you in touch with him. There's a lot that we can do, even in a state that's so overwhelmingly dominated by the Democrats, like Massachusetts is. If we don't start now, soon we won't have any privacy on the internet. If we don't start now, then soon everything will be locked down by corporations, and you won't be able to go and share videos with your friends, or music or things like that. And we believe these are things that are natural to being a human being, and and to take those away from us or to privatize those aspects of what it means to be human is just criminal, and we're here to stop it.
All right, I want to thank you for your work and for talking to us about it today on Utopia News.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me.